Welcome to the Property Wealth Podcast. We're so glad to have you here with us today. We're diving into a really interesting topic that a lot of folks are curious about. Short-term rentals versus long-term. Which one really wins out?
Yeah, it's a great question, Sarah. Both options have their pros and cons, and it really depends on what you're looking for in your real estate journey.
Exactly. So today, we're going to explore the ins and outs of both strategies. We'll talk about the flexibility and potential income from short-term rentals, and then we'll also look at the stability and long-term benefits that come with long-term rentals.
Right, and we'll share some practical tips on what to consider when choosing which route to go. I think it's important for listeners to understand not just the financial aspects, but also the lifestyle implications.
Yeah, and we'll also touch on things like market trends and how to manage your properties effectively, whether you're going for short or long term.
And let's not forget about the potential challenges each option presents. That's something that can really influence your decision.
Absolutely. So if you're thinking about getting into the rental market, or maybe you're already in it and just weighing your options, stick around. We've got some valuable insights coming your way.
All right, let's jump in. You know, Sarah, when we talk about short-term rentals versus long-term ones, it's more than just numbers, right? It really taps into what's happening in the world right now, especially for those of us over 40.
Absolutely. I mean, with retirement timelines shifting and inflation creeping up, it can feel overwhelming. But that's why understanding these strategies is so crucial.
Exactly. I've seen so many investors in their 40s and 50s who are starting to think about how to protect their wealth. And short-term rentals can be a big part of that picture.
Right. I remember chatting with a client. Let's call her Jane. She was in her early 50s, and she was worried about her retirement savings not keeping up with inflation. She decided to invest in a short-term rental in a tourist-heavy area. It turned out to be a game changer for her cash flow.
Yeah, that's a great example. Short-term rentals can sometimes generate higher income than traditional long-term leases. So for people like Jane, it provided not just a way to combat inflation, but also a more flexible income stream. She could adjust her rates based on demand, you know?
Exactly. And it's not just about the numbers. There's an emotional aspect too. I think many people over 40 are starting to think about their legacy and how they want to support their families.
For sure. I had another client, let's call him Tom. He was in his late 40s and had a couple of long-term rental properties. But he realized that those properties weren't generating enough cash to help his kids with college expenses down the line. So he pivoted to a short-term rental strategy.
And how did that work out for him?
Well, he did his research and found a property near a university. By renting it out for short stays during the school year and then longer during the summer break, he ended up doubling his income.
That's fantastic. So he was able to save for his kids, college, while also building wealth for himself.
Yeah, and he also felt a sense of security knowing he could adapt to market changes. Because let's be real, the market is shifting right now. We're seeing economic trends that are unpredictable.
True, and for people over 40, that unpredictability can be quite scary. I think having a diverse portfolio helps mitigate that risk.
Absolutely. Diversifying between short-term and long-term rentals can really provide a safety net. If one side of the market cools down, the other might still be thriving. It's about finding that balance, right?
And let's not forget about the tax benefits. Many listeners may not realize that short-term rentals can offer some fantastic deductions, like property management fees or even depreciation.
Right, and that's especially important for those of us approaching retirement age. It can mean more money in your pocket now, which could be critical for those planning their future.
Plus, with rising property values in many areas, having a short-term rental can also serve as a hedge against inflation. You're not just earning income, you're also watching your investment grow.
Spot on. And let's talk about the wealth transfer aspect, too. Many people in their 40s and 50s are thinking about how to set up their children or grandchildren for success. A well-managed short-term rental can be a fantastic asset to pass down.
Right, it's not just about you anymore, it's about creating opportunities for the next generation. I think that motivates a lot of people to dive into real estate investing.
Exactly. And speaking of motivation, the emotional security that comes from having a solid investment can't be underestimated. When you know you have a tangible asset, it can ease a lot of financial stress.
For sure. I mean, just the thought of having a steady stream of income can make a huge difference in someone's peace of mind as they approach retirement.
And let's face it, we all want to enjoy our golden years without worrying about bills piling up. That's why real estate can be such a powerful tool.
Absolutely. And it's about making informed choices. Like, if someone is considering jumping into short-term rentals, they should think about the location, the type of property, and even the time commitment involved.
Right, because it can be a bit hands-on. But with the right systems in place, it can become a manageable source of income. Automation tools for booking, cleaning services, and property management can really help.
And those are all things that can be learned, right? It's not rocket science. But having that knowledge base is key, especially for someone looking to make a shift after 40.
Exactly. And there's a community out there. Forums, local meetups, you name it. It's about connecting with others who are on that same path.
And those connections can be invaluable. Sharing experiences, strategies, there's so much to gain from learning from others.
Totally. And as we start transitioning into the core strategies for short-term versus long-term rentals, I think it's important to keep these emotional and financial aspects in mind. They're intertwined.
Yes, let's dive into those core strategies. Because understanding the nuances can really make a difference in how someone approaches real estate investing today.
So let's dive into some core strategies when it comes to short-term rentals versus long-term rentals. One of the first things investors should consider is the cash flow potential.
Right, cash flow is so crucial. I mean, obviously, we want our investments to generate income. What's a good rule of thumb for evaluating cash flow, Mike?
Well, a common guideline is the asterisk 1% rule. Point. Essentially, you want to aim for a property that can rent for at least 1% of its purchase price each month. So if you buy a property for, say, $200,000, you're looking for a monthly rent of around $2,000.
That sounds pretty straightforward. But what if the property is in a market that's just not hitting that 1% mark?
Good question. In that case, you might need to get a bit creative. You can look at properties that might need some work to increase their value or rental potential. Or you might consider investing in a market that's on the rise, where rental prices are expected to increase.
So you're really looking for that balance between purchase price and potential rental income. What about the asterisk 50% rule, Knifester? I've heard about that one too.
Yes. The 50% rule is another handy guideline for estimating your operating expenses. The idea is that about 50% of your rental income will go towards costs like maintenance, property management, taxes, and so on. So if you're bringing in $2,000 a month, you should budget around $1,000 for those expenses.
That makes sense. And it's a good reminder that rental income isn't all profit. I guess it's easy to overlook those costs when you're just focusing on the income side.
Exactly. And when you're evaluating properties, especially for short-term rentals, you want to factor in additional expenses like cleaning services or utilities. Those can add up quickly.
Right, and that's something I imagine a lot of new investors might miss. Speaking of short-term rentals, how do you determine if a property is a good candidate for that?
Location is key for short-term rentals. You want to be in an area that attracts tourists or business travelers. Look for properties near popular attractions, airports, or business districts. And then check platforms like Airbnb or VRBO to see what similar properties are charging.
And how about occupancy rates? I assume that's another important factor?
Absolutely. You should research historical occupancy rates for the area. If a property has a consistently high occupancy rate, it's likely a good investment for short-term rentals. You can also calculate potential income based on occupancy. For example, if you list your property for $150 a night and expect 20 nights booked a month, that's $3,000 in potential income.
So that's where the numbers really come into play. But what about financing? Are there specific options that work better for short-term versus long-term rentals?
Yes, financing can differ quite a bit. For long-term rentals, traditional mortgages usually work well. You can get favorable rates, especially if you're living in the property initially. But for short-term rentals, lenders might see that as a higher risk. You might need to consider alternative financing options, like portfolio loans or even hard money loans.
And those can be more expensive, right? So careful calculations are even more critical if you're going that route.
Exactly. You want to ensure that your cash flow can cover those higher costs. And don't forget to consider the down payment. Some lenders require a larger down payment for short-term rental properties.
So it sounds like you really need to do your homework on financing options. What about the types of properties? Are there certain types that tend to do better as short-term rentals?
Generally, single-family homes and small multifamily units can be great for short-term rentals, especially if they're in desirable locations. Condos can also be a good choice, but be wary of HOA restrictions. They can sometimes limit short-term rentals.
Good point. I've heard about some neighborhoods having strict rules against that. It's a huge factor to consider.
Definitely. And when it comes to long-term rentals, you might look for properties that have more units. Multifamily homes can provide more consistent cash flow since you have multiple tenants.
Yeah, that diversification can be really helpful. But are there certain markets where one strategy might shine over the other?
For sure. Short-term rentals tend to do well in tourist-heavy areas or cities with big events. Long-term rentals might flourish in suburban areas or places with growing job markets. It really comes down to local demand and trends.
So it's about understanding the type of market you're in and aligning your strategy accordingly.
Exactly. And you also want to keep an eye on property appreciation. Short-term rentals might see higher volatility in income, but they can also appreciate significantly in hot markets. Long-term rentals might offer steadier income, but appreciation can be slower.
It's all about weighing those risks and rewards, right?
Yes, and having a clear exit strategy is key. Whether you're leaning towards short-term or long-term rentals, know when you might want to sell or refinance down the line.
And that's where a solid plan comes into play. So what's next? Are there common pitfalls we should be aware of in both strategies?
Absolutely. That's a crucial part of the conversation. Let's talk about some of those common pitfalls that can trip up investors. So, yeah, let's dive into some common pitfalls that investors, especially those new to the game, often encounter when deciding between short-term and long-term rentals.
Absolutely, Mike. One of the biggest mistakes I see is over-leveraging. You know, people get so excited about the potential cash flow from short-term rentals that they stretch their finances too thin.
Right, and that can lead to a lot of stress. I've seen investors buy properties thinking they'll be booked solid, only to find out they can't cover their mortgage when the occupancy dips. One client of mine, well, let's call him Tom, he bought a beautiful beach house, thinking he'd make a killing during the summer months.
Oh no, what happened to Tom?
Well, he didn't factor in the off-season. Turns out he was relying too heavily on those summer bookings to pay his bills, but come fall, he was facing months of vacancy. He ended up having to dip into savings just to keep his head above water.
That's a tough lesson. So what would you suggest to avoid that?
It's crucial to have a solid financial plan in place. Build a buffer for those lean months. And, really analyze the market. Look at historical occupancy rates for the area. If you know there's a slow season, you can plan for it.
Definitely makes sense. And then there's the issue of bad tenants, which can affect both long-term and short-term rentals, right?
Exactly. With short-term rentals, you might think you're safe because you can vet guests. But I've seen some real horror stories. Like one investor I know. Let's call her Lisa. She had a group of guests who threw a wild party and ended up causing thousands of dollars in damage.
Ugh, that sounds awful.
Yeah, and what was worse, Lisa didn't have the right insurance coverage to handle the repairs, so she ended up paying out of pocket. It really hit her hard financially.
Wow, that's a tough break. How can someone avoid that kind of situation?
Screening is key. Always check references and reviews, and consider using platforms that provide insurance or guarantees. Also, setting clear house rules can help manage expectations and behavior,
And what about ignoring cash flow? I've heard that can be a killer for investors.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen it happen too often. Investors get so caught up in the potential rental income that they forget to factor in all the expenses. A colleague of mine, let's call him Steve, he bought a duplex with the idea of turning one side into a short-term rental.
Sounds smart?
It did, until he realized he hadn't accounted for property management fees, cleaning costs, and maintenance. By the time he added everything up, he was barely breaking even.
That's frustrating. How can someone keep track of those costs?
Always create a detailed budget and be realistic about potential expenses. And I'd recommend keeping a reserve fund for unexpected costs. You'd be surprised how quickly they can add up.
And timing the market? That's another common mistake, isn't it?
Yes, people think they can time their purchase perfectly, waiting for the market to dip, but it can be a gamble. I had a client, let's call her Rachel, who kept waiting for prices to drop in her preferred neighborhood.
And did they drop?
Not at all. In fact, they kept rising. By the time she decided to buy, she ended up paying much more than she would have if she'd just acted earlier.
That's frustrating. So what's the takeaway there?
Well, it's about being informed and making decisions based on solid data, rather than trying to predict the market. If you find a good deal, don't hesitate too long.
That's such a good point. And what about hidden costs?
Oh, they can really sneak up on you. I've known investors who didn't consider things like HOA fees, property taxes, or even utilities. For instance, one investor, let's call him Mark, bought a property thinking he'd turn it into a short-term rental.
What happened with Mark?
He forgot about the local regulations and licensing fees for short-term rentals. By the time he added everything up, he was way over budget, and it cut into his profits significantly.
That's tough. How can someone uncover those hidden costs early on?
Research is key. Look into local regulations, talk to other investors in the area, and really break down your expected costs. Don't just rely on the listing price. Dig deeper.
Those are all great tips, Mike. So for those who might find themselves in any of these situations, what steps can they take to recover or avoid these pitfalls in the future?
First, don't panic. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, but reevaluating your strategy is crucial. If you're over-leveraged, consider refinancing or selling a property that isn't performing well. And always keep learning, whether it's through podcasts, books, or networking with other investors.
That's so encouraging. It's really about adapting and being proactive, isn't it?
Exactly. And remember, every experienced investor has faced setbacks. It's how you respond that makes all the difference.
Such a positive perspective, Mike. Thanks for sharing those insights. I think our listeners will find them really valuable.
All right, so let's dive into the actionable steps listeners can take right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So where should they start?
Well, a good first step is to analyze the market. Get familiar with what's out there. Apps like Zillow or Realtor.com are great for checking property prices and trends in your area.
Oh, definitely. And they can also tap into tools like Rentometer to see what rental prices look like for similar properties.
Exactly. And if they're leaning towards short-term rentals, they might want to check out sites like AirDNA. It provides data on short-term rental performance, which can really help in making informed decisions.
That's such a valuable resource. And for those who want to dive deeper into the numbers, using something like the Bigger Pockets calculator can be a game changer.
Right. It helps you analyze potential deals, understand cash flow, and see if the numbers make sense before you commit. It's like having a mini financial advisor in your pocket.
Love that. And if someone's just starting out, they might want to set a goal to analyze one deal per week. Just one.
Perfect. It keeps the momentum going without feeling overwhelming. And, of course, joining a local real estate meetup can also be incredibly beneficial.
Networking with like-minded people can really spark ideas and provide support. Plus, it's a great way to learn from others' experiences.
For sure. And speaking of learning, I'd recommend checking out some books like The Book on Rental Property Investing by Brandon Turner. It's packed with practical advice.
That's a classic. And podcasts like Bigger Pockets Podcast offer so much insight. They have real stories from investors, which can be super inspiring.
Yeah. And they're also really relatable. Hearing others, journeys, the ups and downs. It makes the whole process feel more attainable.
Right? And if they're interested in short-term rentals, the Short-Term Show is another great one to check out.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about the importance of setting small, achievable habits. Starting a dedicated time each week, even just an hour, to focus on real estate can make a big difference.
That's so true. Even if it's just researching properties or reading a chapter of a book, consistency is key.
And if they're feeling a bit lost, they might want to access their local MLS. It can provide a wealth of information on properties, including listings that may not be available on mainstream platforms.
Great point. And for those who are more tech-savvy, using tools like DealCheck can streamline the entire investment analysis process.
Exactly. It helps you evaluate properties quickly and efficiently, making it easier to see potential returns and risks.
And let's not forget the value of mentorship. Finding a mentor who has experience in real estate can provide guidance and accountability.
That's huge. Having someone to bounce ideas off of, or to help you navigate tricky situations, can be invaluable.
And they don't have to go at it alone. There are so many resources and communities out there, both online and offline.
Right. So to recap, they can start by analyzing their market with tools like Zillow and Rentometer, set a goal to analyze one deal a week, join local meetups, and dive into books and podcasts for knowledge.
Plus, using apps like BiggerPockets Calculator and DealCheck to streamline their analysis process.
Exactly. And forming small habits. All of this can help them build confidence as they move forward.
And with those tools in their pockets, they're really setting themselves up for success.
So those are some practical first steps. Now let's bring this all together. So as we wrap up, let's quickly recap some key takeaways from our discussion on short-term rentals versus long-term rentals.
Yeah, definitely. First off, we talked about how short-term rentals can generate higher cash flow, especially in tourist-heavy areas, right?
Exactly. But then there's the need for constant management and upkeep. It's not for everyone. That can really add up in terms of time and effort.
Right. And then we looked at long-term rentals, which offer more stability, predictable income over time. That can be really comforting for investors looking for a reliable return.
Absolutely. And don't forget about the potential tax benefits that can come with long-term rentals, which can make a big difference in your overall investment strategy.
Oh, totally. And we also highlighted the importance of market research. Knowing your area and what works best for you is crucial.
For sure. And that brings us to the big picture. Building wealth through real estate takes time, patience, and a bit of strategy. It's about finding what aligns with your goals and lifestyle.
Yeah, and no matter where you are in your investing journey, there's always an opportunity to learn and grow. So take those steps, even small ones. They add up.
And hey, if you found value in today's episode, don't forget to like and subscribe. We'd love to hear your biggest takeaway or any questions you might have in the comments below.
Absolutely. And if you know someone over 40 who's interested in investing in property, share this episode with them. You never know who might benefit.
Next time, we'll dive into Airbnb investing after new regulations. It's going to be quite the discussion.
I can't wait. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks a lot. We'll catch you next time.